Hey guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, let me know what you think. Now let's get into today's video. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing the Line. I hope you had a good Australia Day. We'll get straight into this story here. It's some good news. The woke spoiled children trying to set fire to Atlanta, Maine, millionaire's son, award-winning clarinet, trans non-binary activist, and the middle-class vegan all arrested for domestic terrorism during Antifa riots. Finally, they're arresting these idiots, children, spoilt brats, whatever you want to call them, and they are charging him with domestic terrorism. As you've seen over the last couple of years, Antifa has since escalated their protests to riots, attempted murders, and arson, you name it. They've got a long list of tools in their belt that they like to use, and now finally some of them are being arrested. Hopefully the charges stick, and hopefully these people go to jail for a very long time. So we'll take a look at this story from The Guardian. The woke spoiled children trying to set fire to Atlanta, Maine's millionaire's son, award-winning clarinet, trans non-binary activist, and the middle-class vegan all arrested for domestic terrorism during Antifa riots. Now, as you can see, vegan, you got a drink there. Trans, you got a drink there. Non-binary, drink again. And we'll just say domestic terrorism, you can drink there again as well. So we'll take a look at the story here. The son of a millionaire surgeon has been charged with domestic terrorism for the second time in a month over his role in violent Antifa protests in Atlanta on Saturday. Francis Carroll, 22, from Maine, is one of the 6 people charged after riots over the death of a protester who had allegedly shot a police officer. Details also emerged on Monday about the privileged backgrounds of several other rioters whom travelled from their peaceful hometowns outside of Georgia to wreak havoc in the state. A police car was torched and buildings were vandalised on Saturday due to clashes which followed the death of Antifa activist Manuel Esteban Terran, 26, who was killed on Wednesday, January the 19th. Carroll, who grew up in a mansion in a luxurious beach town, was previously charged with domestic terrorism in December for the role of a violent protester at the site of Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. And you can see in the last episode some of the footage of the protesters, or let's call them what they are, terrorists, getting their absolute ass handed to them by some police officers. The $90 million centre, dubbed Cop City by protesters, has been the target of protests since June 2021. Atlanta Police Department said Carroll was charged again on Saturday, along with Naja Gajir, 24, from Nashville, Tennessee, Madeline Faloa, 22, from Spokane, Washington, Ivan Ferguson, 23, from Nevada, Graham Everett, 20, from Decatur, Georgia, and Emily Murphy, 37, from Gross, Michigan. All 6 are charged with domestic terrorism, and other felonies include arson, criminal damage, interference from the government property. They also face several misdemeanor charges. Fresh details have also emerged about privileged lives of some of the other protesters who have accused of bringing destruction to the streets of Atlanta. Now, we've all known this. It's little rich white kids that like to burn shit down and attack police officers and anyone who they just deem as a fascist, because they have no education, because it's the American education system. 2, they got told they were winners and everything they did their whole life was good. This is the generation now that's popping up like that was given participation medals when they went to sports carnivals and crap like that, and told that every little bit of brain chemistry they have is a syndrome, and that they're special and everyone should treat them that way. But reality's kicking them hard in the teeth, and I'm glad that these people are finally getting arrested, and hopefully they do not see the light of day for quite some time. Philoa, from the wealthy suburb of Happy Valley in Portland, Oregon. Oh, well, Portland, Oregon, isn't that shocking? Is a trans non-binary activist, who uses the name Henry, the New York Post reported. They studied archaeology at Oberlin College with a focus on decolonization, and once wrote a blog post about the American scientists about gatekeeping medical transition. My God, what is wrong with these children? Just read that again. They studied archaeology and focused on decolonization and once wrote a blog post about the American scientists about gatekeeping medical transition. These people shouldn't be locked up in prison. They should be locked up in a mental institution. Maybe prison anyway, but they definitely need some psychiatric care. I mean, what kind of parents are going to be paying for their kid to go and learn about decolonization and archaeology and gatekeeping medical transition? What this world... But some people have too much money. Some people have way too much money. Murphy is a vegan activist who claimed her family still doesn't fully understand what being vegan means, despite her attempts to explain the lifestyle choice, which she took up more than 5 years ago. That's probably what's wrong with her. She's got the protein deficiency and is just lashing out. I know when my wife gets hangry, if I don't feed her immediately, I will suffer the consequences, myself included. If I get hungry, I lash out and I get rather shitty. I don't know anyone who doesn't. So maybe that's what's wrong. She's just got some vitamin B deficiency, some iron deficiency, something like that. You just need a burger, maybe a bit of bacon. Ferguson is a classically trained clarinet who studied at the prestigious San Francisco Conservatory of Music. The revelations about the group follow the arrest of other activists from similarly middle and upper class backgrounds following earlier riots in the city. Look how peaceful they are. It's mostly peaceful. Yeah, it looks very peaceful. He's definitely peaceful. Cops must have rocked his world. The arrests indicate Antifa organisers are recruiting activists from across the country to commit violence in Atlanta. The violent thugs, several who were brought up in wealthy households, believe that police forces should be scrapped. They have set up camps in Woodland around the training centre site in a bid to halt construction. Tehran was shot dead by police after he allegedly shooting and injuring an officer during an operation to clear the protesters from the site. Antifa protesters called a night of rage against the police after the death. On Saturday, Mark's thugs in black uniform clashed with police downtown Atlanta after they destroyed vehicles and property. You can see the houses these people grew up in. Yachting, lakeside. Oh, they're so oppressed. I mean, no wonder they're lashing out against the police, because obviously the police have ruined their lives. They've just terrible. That is a stone's throw away from Bush family compound where George H.W. Bush spends his summer. Wow, that's his house, and just a stone's throw away. That is fantastic. That is a presidential house. I mean, I'd love that place. I mean, you can imagine running around there, drinking piss all day, going for a swim. And what George Bush do? Oh, he's just killing a couple of million Iraqis and probably molesting children on Epstein Island, but we won't get into that. Atlanta Police Chief Darain Shearbaum said, "It doesn't take a rocket scientist or an attorney to tell you that breaking windows or setting fires is not protesting. That is terrorism. They will be charged accordingly, and they will find that the police department and the partnership is equally committed to stopping that activity." The fresh charges against Carroll and 5 others were revealed on Sunday night. The police statement said activists damaged property at several locations along with Peachtree Street, a corridor of hotels and restaurants, adding to several arrests that were made and order was quickly restored. That was the gentleman there who was shot dead by police. That was a firearm that was used. He shot police officers. I mean, look, it's a human PR. Look how peaceful they are. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't police, want to shut them down? Oh, yeah. So he's such a peaceful child. They're writing "kill cops" on shit. Yeah. Carroll is the son of the surgeon Dr. Michael Carroll, who grew up in a $2 million 5-bedroom home, 4-bathroom mansion in Kenkenbunkport. I thought Australia had some fucking weird names. Look at that one. Kennybunkport? It looks like Welsh or something. Before he aligned with Antifa, he enjoyed the time of his parents' yacht with his sisters. His father works at Maine Health County Medical Center as a general surgeon, and his mother as a keen sailor. Well, I hope that his father, being a general surgeon, he knows how to put his kid's head back together, because the police in America, especially at the moment, are well known for busting people's heads open. A 2016 picture shows a man resembling Carroll on a board in a boat called Alez through. The sailor's identity is unclear. He grew up just a stone's throw away from the famous Bush family compound where George H.W. Bush spent his summer. Carroll's arrest in December came after police were assaulted with rocks and bottles by militants occupying a makeshift treehouse near the police training facility site. They are also accused of terrorising nearby residents. Carroll, who wiped his social media shortly before his arrest, was charged with criminal trespass, domestic terrorism, aggravated assault, felony obstruction, interference from the government property, and possession of tools for the commission of a crime. It wasn't immediately clear how he was free to take part in further protests over the weekend. Well, it's immediately clear that they just let them out and then cry poor when it happens again. We can go and have a look at some of these photos here of the arrests and the kids here. Old sleepy time. His parents. Yeah, you imagine how you go from living in the bush like that, from leaving a house like that. You've been radicalized by the university, I'd say, and any left-wing media that just spews hatred towards police and other people and anyone with a differing view. Now, like, police are in shit water with me and just about 90% of the people that you talk to. They do not like police. Most of us don't. And there's very good reasons around behind it. But defunding them is the least effective way to stop police brutality. I mean, we've just seen that terrible incident where those 5 black police officers beat the crap out of that black kid and black gentleman and murdered him in the street in cold blood. He died 3 days later from his injuries, and they're all being charged with murder, and we'll see where that goes. But there's no love for the police, but these people aren't protesting just police. They're protesting pretty much anything against their agenda. They get paid by people like George Soros, and they get let away with crimes in a lot of states where they just keep reoffending. I mean, look at Portland. They've got so many people that get arrested and then let out that they just keep reoffending. And now that they're traveling from Portland to other places in the state and outside of the state to protest and do the same crimes, and sometimes it comes back to bite you in the ass. So we'll have a good look at some. Look at these kids. They're so. Why do they all look like they've got autism? Is it just me? Like, autism, maybe a bit of Down syndrome as well. Like, do they just find all these kids and then use them as puppets, or are they just getting brainwashed at school? What do you guys think? We'll go and have a look at some Antifa riot footage, and we'll go and find some footage of Antifa get their ass handed to them to end this video. What do you guys reckon? I reckon that'd be fun to watch. Let's go.
Fuck Antifa! Fuck Antifa! Fuck Antifa! Fuck Antifa! Hey, bitch! No fucking...
Hey! Yo! Stop it!
Unmask them! Unmask them!
Fuck you!
Unmask them! Unmask them! Unmask them! Unmask them all! Unmask them! Unmask them all! Fuck Antifa! Fuck Antifa!
Oh my God!
Unmask them! Unmask them all! Unmask them all! Fuck Antifa! Unmask them all! Unmask them all! Where's Chandler? Bring his ass! Bring his ass! Come on! Chandler is a pussy! Pussy!
I'm getting in my face.
You're in my face.
Stop it.
You're in my face.
You guys all got to go.
Jacinda Horseface Adern from New Zealand, the dictator of New Zealand, has finally started to step down. Now, she came out and announced that she will not run for re-election, and I couldn't be happier. I know a lot of New Zealanders that feel the same way, even though the media is putting on a lie saying that they're devastated and people are absolutely gut-wrenchingly upset about this whole thing. But no, I think a lot of people in New Zealand, after those protests and riots, they're going to be sleeping a little bit sounder tonight, knowing that they're not going to be locked down and injected with experimental drugs in the next coming election cycle. So that's some good news, but we'll read this story here we've got from The Guardian. Jacinda Adern resigns as Prime Minister of New Zealand. Labour leader to stand down no later than February 7th, saying she no longer has enough in the tank to do the job. Wonder if she's suffering from any side effects from all the boosters that she's got. Maybe she's got a bit of long COVID even. Who knows? But seeming she's a horse-faced woman, maybe she was allowed to take that horse pace that Joe Rogan was taking. Maybe she's allowed to take that. But I'm not going to say the words because this video will get shut down pretty quickly. Anyway, we'll keep reading here, shall we? New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Adern said she is resigning in an unexpected announcement that came as she confirmed a national election for October. At the party's first caucus meeting of the year on Thursday, Adern said she no longer had enough in the tank to do the job. It's time, she added. I'm leaving because such a privileged role comes responsibility. The responsibility to know when you are the right person to lead and also when you are not. Well, you haven't been the right person to lead since you got in there. But over these last 2 years, you really showed your true communist colours, didn't you? You showed that you didn't give a shit about the New Zealand people. You just wanted to pretend that you were a good World Economic Forum member. Her term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than 7th of February, but she will continue as an MP until the election this year. I'm a human. Politicians are human. We give all that we can. She's not really. She's some sort of half-horse hybrid, isn't she? We will give all that we can find for as long as we can, and then it's time, and it's for me. It's time, she said. Adern said she has reflected over the summer break on whether she had the energy to continue the role, and she had concluded she did not. Adern became the world's youngest female head of government when she was elected Prime Minister in 2017 at 37. She has led New Zealand through the COVID-19 pandemic and a series of disasters, including a terrorist attack on 2 mosques in Christchurch and the White Island volcanic eruption. Oh yeah, so in that time, she locked down her country, injected her people with a unknown, untested, and possibly deadly piece of medication. We'll just call it that. Also, she banned all semi-automatic guns over a terrorist attack. So she disarmed her population and blamed pretty much every white person for that. She's also been donating quite a lot of money to little government, things called the mongrel mob, if you don't know who they are. Massive bikie mob in New Zealand. But she's been donating quite a lot of money to them. I wonder why. And she's been heralded as pretty much waved around as a banner girl for World Economic Forum, because she really does not like freedom of speech, and she really does not like you thinking the things you think. This has been the most fulfilling 5.5 years of my life, but it's also had the challenges. Among its agenda focus on housing, child poverty, and climate change. You haven't done shit for housing or child poverty, and that's still a major issue in New Zealand. And climate change, well, New Zealand's population of a couple of million people, really, you don't make a massive impact on the environment or climate change, just like Australia, just like America, just like England. Don't have a massive impact on anything to do with the climate. But places like India, China, pretty much the Southeast Asia, have a massive impact. But you don't ever say anything about them countries, do you? You just let them guys slide and try to take everything you can from your own people and tax the absolute hell out of them, and pretend it's all their fault that the climate change, because you're a World Economic Forum puppet. I hope I leave New Zealanders with a belief that you can be kind but strong, empathetic and decisive, optimistic but focused, and that you can be your own kind of leader, one who knows when it's time to go. It was time to go when you started locking down your country and banning your citizens from entering places and keeping them separated, letting family members die from cardiac arrest and adverse reactions, and then not letting people go to their funerals or go and see them in hospital. You should have stepped down then. Over the past year, Adern has faced significant increases in threats and violence, particularly from conspiracy theorists and anti-vaccine groups, infuriated by the country's vaccine mandates and lockdowns. She said, however, that the increased risks associated with the job were not behind her decision to step down. I hope it was. I hope you're stepping down because of that, because you have done nothing but betray your people every year you've been in power. And I don't think she's going to stop. I think she'll go and get a nice cushy job somewhere on a forum of the UN or the World Economic Forum at Davos or something like that, where she can keep manipulating and taking away people's rights and freedoms and implementing their disgusting, weird, warped, communist, whatever agenda you want to call it. It's anti-humane agenda. I don't want to leave the impression that the adversity you face in politics is the reason that people exit. Yes, it does have an impact. We are humans, after all. No, you're not. But that was not the basis of my decision. Adern said she had no future plans other than to spend more time with her family. She thanked her partner, Clark Gayford. Of course, his name would be Gayford, wouldn't it? Well. And the daughter, Neve. Neve? You should have stepped down after calling her Neve. God damn. Whom she gave birth to while holding office as one of the ones that have sacrificed the most out of all of us. To Neve, Mum is looking forward to being there when you start school this year. And Clark, let's finally get married. Also, she's got a bastard child too. Oh, God. This is just some good news for the day anyway. But the issue is now, who is going to be taking over from her? Now, I don't know much about this dude. I don't know much about her either, because I try not to talk about her or read anything about her, because it just irks the crap out of me, I suppose. But this is their new PM, and he's talking about how he wants to hunt down New Zealanders and make sure they're vaccinated if they don't get the vaccine. So he wants to hunt them down and vaccinate them. We'll take a look at this short video. You can see it on Dr. Sydney Watson on Twitter, and it's been floating around over the last couple of days as well. This is, I believe it's an older clip, but this is basically their new Prime Minister, who it's going to be, and yeah, this is what they stand for.
So on. So everyone will be able to everyone will be able to get a vaccine between now and the end of the year. But of course, you know, and I want every New Zealander to come forward, but human behaviour suggests that there will be some people that we have to actually really go out and look for, and some of that may spill into next year. But our commitment is everyone will have the opportunity to get the vaccine by the end of the year. Everyone will, but I can't say that, you know, that we're not going to have some hesitant people or some people who just haven't come forward that we don't have to go out and find next year. I think early next year we'll be in the phase of...
So, as you can see, he is a lovely person. I don't know about you, but the shark eyes on him, he's from the shark eyes. I don't know about that. But yeah, that's the kind of person that they're going to be electing. Well, they're going to have in Parliament now. So, I don't know if it's going to be any better. If anything, it could be worse because he's obviously going to be following in her footsteps. And I really do hope that New Zealand can recover from the crap that Jacinda's put them into and possibly the crap that this dude's going to be putting him into. It's a bit scary to see what someone thinks that they should hunt down unvaccinated people and then inject them is coming into power. Mind you, Jacinda Adern did and said the same bloody thing. So, I don't know. It could be better, could be worse, but I'm just glad that she's stepping down. I wonder where her next job's going to be. We might watch this space. She might be working for the World Economic Forum. Could be working for BlackRock, someone like that. One of her good old buddy, old pal friends. But it wouldn't be surprising if she worked in the tech sector as well, maybe at Facebook or YouTube or one of those alphabet companies or something like that, you know. You never know. Russia is now at war with NATO. Now, I think we've been at war and NATO's been at war with Russia for quite some time now. I mean, how many tanks and billions of dollars worth of weaponry can you send to a country to fight in a war where you're just not involved because there's a checkbook in between you and the two warring parties? Now, the Russia-Ukraine war is about to kick off into high gear when the ground in Ukraine dries out and they can start using tanks and armoured personnel carriers and start moving around more freely. I think Ukraine's going to suffer greatly in the next coming couple of months from all these reports and stories that I've seen. People have been saying the same thing. As soon as the ground thaws and dries out, that Ukraine is going to have a hell of a time on their hands. Now, Russia's mobilised a new bunch of troops and got them into position, but Ukraine is also going to be bringing online a lot of weaponry that they've since captured from the Russians over the last couple of months, and that they're getting as well. They're getting like 30 Abrams tanks from the US. They're getting shit sent to them left, right, and centre. Now, that is going to escalate the war significantly. If Putin decides that he is at risk of losing in some sort of large way, whether they're going to be crossing into Russia, if it gets to something like that, then we could possibly see nuclear weapons being launched or some sort of dirty nuclear bomb with nuclear power plants in Ukraine could be getting bombed, things like that. Just don't know where it's going to go, what's going to happen, who's going to come out ahead, because they have put so much backing behind Ukraine. That's the only reason they're still standing. They're not winning by any sort, any real chance. They're not really winning. They're losing a lot of men, they're losing a lot of ground, and they're losing a lot of equipment. But Russia is too. They are taking a hell of a beating. But if Russia decides just to go and put 1 million men on the line and throw bodies at the situation like Russia usually does in a war, Ukraine won't be able to stand up to it. Just like just about any other country that's ever come up against Russia has never been able to stand up against that. There's only so much you can do when they're throwing 1 million to 2 million bodies at your trenches and at your tanks. I mean, I don't care how many tanks you've got. If you've got 1 million, 2 million men running at you with AKs and rocket launchers and you name it, there's not much you can do, and the red tide, as it were, will beat you down. But we'll have a look at this story here from the Daily Mail. Russia is now at war with NATO and the West. Putin has taken conflict in Ukraine to a different stage, senior EU official admits following Germany's decision to supply tanks. Now, last time Germany sent tanks through to Poland to get into Russia, it was on a bit of a different standing, I suppose you could say. It was a bit of a lightning war. I think it was 1940s, 1939. That kind of war. So there's a few people scratching their heads now that Russia is or Germany's sending tanks through Poland. Maybe it's all a big ploy and Germany's really the bad guy, which wouldn't surprise me with Angela Merkel there in power. She is a piece of work. EU Stefano Sano warned Russia now see the war being against the West. Russia is now at war against NATO and the West and has taken the invasion of Ukraine to a different stage, a senior EU official has admitted, raising the terrifying spectre of a global conflict. The game-changing deal among Western leaders to pump sophisticated tanks into the country to blast through the Kremlin's invading forces have sparked fury in Moscow, which has threatened to escalate the war beyond Ukraine's borders. Stefano Cernino, Secretary General of the European's External Action Service, said that Vladimir Putin will increase indiscriminate attacks on civilians and non-military targets and retaliate against the West. Speaking at a news conference in Tokyo as part of the Asia-Pacific tour, he said Putin had moved from a concept of special operation to a concept now of a war against NATO and the West. The official defended the US and German tank provisions, saying that they are not intended as an attack, but rather to help Ukrainians defend themselves. You don't defend yourselves with tanks, you attack with tanks. But, I get it. I mean, if that was Australia, I'd be wanting America to send tanks as well, but we all know who's pushed Russia to getting here. Biden and his dealings in Ukraine, Zelensky and his corruption, this whole UN and EU fucking agenda that is trying to get the Ukraine to fold the Ukraine in. Russia is not going to stand for it. They know they're not going to stand for it because the Americans didn't stand for it when Russia tried to send nuclear bombs and sit off the coast in Cuba. They weren't going to stand for it. So why would Russia let them do that? I mean, this mass amount of meat they're putting into this war and money they're putting into this war, and the people who are getting screwed over here are the Russians and the Ukrainians. I mean, it looks like the West is trying to drain Russia like they did in the Afghan war, and look what happened then. The USSR fell, Berlin Wall fell, the whole shit came tumbling down, and they lost it just about everything. So if something similar happens like that, if Russia falls into some sort of, like post-USSR Soviet era kind of thing, it's going to be a lot worse this time. It's going to be some factions. It's going to be companies. China's going to be getting their dirty little mitts in there as well. There's going to be nuclear missiles going missing, and that's if Putin just doesn't launch them outright and just say, "Screw you all," and press the big red button. The official defended the US-German tank divisions, rather help Ukrainians defend themselves, blah, blah, blah. He said that in the latest development in terms of arms supply is just an evolution of the situation and the way Russia started moving the war into a different stage. He added that Russia is making indiscriminate attacks on civilians and cities and no longer military targets. The EU is not looking to escalate hostilities, but is just giving the possibility of saving lives and allowing the Ukrainians to defend themselves from these barbaric attacks, Mr. Cernino added. Meanwhile, the Kremlin said today in the US holds the key to ending the war in Ukraine, but refuses to use it. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov accused Joe Biden of pumping weapons into Ukraine when he could instead be instigating a ceasefire. That's correct. I mean, they're just giving him money and was another 30 or 40 billion dollars the other day, and they're just giving him more and more weapons and not giving him bloody relief or anything like that. They're not like sending him food packs and shit as much as they're sending him weapons. I mean, I'm sure they're getting some sort of aid and that, but like, they're not trying to calm the whole situation down. They're not like vying for peace, which is what their job is as the world leading superpower. That's their job. They're supposed to stop armed conflict from getting to a point where people start lobbing nukes at one another. But Joe Biden's probably too busy trying to sniff women's bloody hair to smell what kind of shampoo they're wearing. And he's too worried about all the classified documents they keep finding in his fucking goddamn garage and Corvette. Maybe that's why he's letting Ukraine get bombed and that so badly, is because he's got classified documents in just about every single building over in Ukraine and just wants them gone before the FBI finds them. Germany and the US announced on Wednesday they will send advanced battle tanks to Ukraine, offering what one expert called an armoured punching force to help Kiev break combat stalemates in the Russian invasion enters its 12th month. The announcement marked the first stage of a coordinated effort by the West to provide dozens of the heavy weapons which Ukrainian military commanders said they would enable counter-offensive, reduce casualties, and help restore dwindling ammunition supplies. Joe Biden said his country will send 31 M1 Abrams tanks, reversing months of persistent arguments by Washington that they were too difficult for Ukrainian troops to operate and maintain. The US decision followed Germany's agreement to send 14 Leopards to A6 tanks from its own stocks. In response, Russia has stepped up to attempt to break through Ukraine's defense with heavy fighting in the east of the country. Ukrainian military said fierce battles were underway a day after the Russian missiles and drones killed at least 11 people in retaliation to the tank deal. Volodymyr Zelensky thanked allies for the support but renewed calls for tougher sanctions on Moscow and made clear his country would need more weapons to repel the invaders in the 12th month of the war. This evil, the Russian aggression, can and should be stopped only with the adequate weapons. The terrorist state will not understand anything else, Zelensky said in his nightly television address on Thursday. See all the tanks that they're getting there. French tanks, German tanks. They're getting the whole gang back together. 31 Abrams tanks from America. That's more than, I think we've only got 30 tanks here in the US, in Australia. We've only got 30 tanks here in Australia, and it might not even be that many. 31 Abrams. That is a lot of it. If that's enough to like push into small parts of Russia if they played their cards right. So this is not going to end well for anyone, let alone well, I suppose Biden's going to come out of it with a bloody fat hip pocket, isn't he? He's getting all of his money out of it. Weapons on the battlefield, weapons that protect our skies, new sanctions against Russia, i.e. political and economic weapons. Ukraine's military said it shot down 47 of 59 Russian missiles on Thursday. Russia also launched 37 airstrikes, 17 of them using Iranian-made Shahed 136 drones. All drones were downed, it said. 11 people were killed in the drone and missile strikes which spanned multiple regions and also damaged dozens of buildings, a state emergency service spokesperson said. Local officials on Friday reported heavy shelling in the north, northeast and east of Ukraine, scene of some of the heaviest combat since Russia launched its invasion. Fierce fighting continues along the front lines. Our defenders are firmly holding their positions and inflicting losses on the enemy, said Oleg Shubuldoyev. Sineboyev. Oh, good luck trying to pronounce that. My apologies. Governor of the northeastern region of Kharkiv. Alexander Musienko, head of the Military and Strategic Research Center of the Ukraine, said that Russia was sending in more reinforcements to block Ukrainian advances. Why can't they start a war in a country that has easier names to pronounce, like America or Canada? Well, then you got the dirty French Canadians. No one likes the French Canadians. No one at all. Not even French Canadians like French Canadians. No, normal Canadians definitely don't like French Canadians. They are mostly sending infantry and artillery forces into battle, made up mainly of conscripts, but they do not have the level of artillery and tank support they had on February 24th, Musienko told Ukrainian television. They have fewer resources. They are relying on the numerical superiority of their troops. Front lines have remained largely frozen over the past 2 months, with Russia trying to gain more ground in the east and occupying much of what is known as the Donbas region to protect the corridor of land it has occupied in southern Ukraine. Front lines have remained largely frozen after Britain said in a regular intelligence report on Friday that the Russian forces had probably conducted probing attacks near Orkiv in the southeast and in Vuhledar in the east, but were unlikely to have achieved substantive advances. Both sides were widely expected to launch a spring offensive. Where will the main Russian strike occur? For now, we have no idea. Diversionary strikes are possible in all sectors, and one or two of the mass strikes aimed at punching a corridor through Ukraine. Mikoya Sunahovsky, director of the military programs at Ukraine's Razumikov Center think tank, told the website. My God, I apologize, there are some bloody hard names there. Russia in the past has reacted to Ukrainian successes with heavy airstrikes and left millions without light, heat or water. On Thursday, it appeared to follow the pattern of Prime Minister Denis Simula said Russia's attacks targeted energy plants. The Kremlin said it was a promised delivery of the Western tanks as evidence of growing direct involvement in the US and Europe at war, something both deny. Western allies have committed about 150 tanks, while the Ukraine says it needs hundreds to break Russian defensive lines and recapture occupied territory in the south and east. Both Moscow and Kiev have relied on Soviet-era T-72 tanks that are expected to mount new ground offensive in the spring. After being promised modern tanks, Ukraine is now seeking Western fourth-generation fighter jets such as the US F-16, an advisor to Ukraine's defense minister said. The United States on Thursday formally designated the Wagner Group, a Russian mercenary company, as a transitional criminal organization, freezing its US assets for helping Russia's military in Ukraine. The head of the Russian-controlled part of the Donetsk region said on Wednesday that Wagner units were advancing in the town of Bakhmut. A senior Ukrainian official said fighting the Bakhmut and the Volod was intensifying since invading Ukraine 11 months ago. Russia has shifted the focus of its rhetoric from denazifying to demilitarizing its neighbor. They're still going with the Nazi thing. Okay. Its neighbor confronting what it says is an aggressive and expansionist US NATO alliance. Now, when they start talking about expanding and Russia's thinking that NATO and the US are expanding towards Russia, that's where things really are going to escalate. I mean, if they're sending that many tanks, this many tanks into Ukraine, that's enough to scare the crap out of the Russians, enough to use nukes. That is a lot of machinery. That is a lot of tanks, not to mention whatever they've captured from the Russians themselves. That's insane. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see where that goes. Hopefully it doesn't get to radioactive nuclear war, because I don't think that's going to end really well for anyone, whether it's Ukraine or Russia or anyone in Europe. They'll be pretty much screwed if they start dropping nukes over there. So what do? Maybe go out and buy some canned goods. Start digging a hole. Wear a tinfoil hat. Make sure you're all boosted. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, don't worry about that. What else can you do? You sit back and watch and wait for hopefully someone to come in with a clearer head and cooler minds and calm everything down, and they can negotiate some sort of peace agreement. But I don't see that happening. They're spending way too much money for that to happen. And there's too many people involved, and there's too many people with financial incentives, let's just say, for this war to end. We'll get into this story here, but I'll give you a heads up. It is a bit gruesome. It is pretty messed up, as you can probably see by the title. But this definitely needs to be reported on and brought out into the light, because it keeps happening. It seems to be coming out and happening more and more often. I don't know whether it's just media outlets are picking up on it. But we had a similar case here in Australia recently with 2 teachers. And any time that this happens, I think that these people really need to have the maximum sentence. People used to say that we'd turn them into fertilizer, and I think that there's some gardens that need fertilizing. Now, we'll take a look at this story here from the New York Post, and we'll get straight into it. Gay couple charged with molesting their adopted son, also pimped them out to a pedophile ring, report claims. A gay couple from Georgia charged with molesting their 2 adopted sons and using them to record child pornography also allegedly pimped them out to members of a local pedophile ring, according to a disturbing new report. A month-long investigation by Town Hall revealed that William Dale Zulock, 33, and Zachary Jacob Zulock, 35, allegedly used their social media to prostitute their 2 elementary-aged sons. William Zulock, a government worker, and Zachary Zulock, a banker, were indicted in August 2022 on charges of incest, aggravated sodomy, aggravated child molestation, felony sexual exploitation of children, and felony prostitution of a minor. But the shocking investigation reveals in more detail the sickening abuse the boys suffered. For the first time, it was revealed that the men allegedly pimped out their older sons, now 11 and 9 years old, and two other men in a pedophile ring. One of the men, Hunter Clay Lawless, 27, told investigators that Zachary, whose Instagram bio describes him as Papa to our two wonderful boys and an activist, invited him to multiple times to take part in sexually abusing the boys, Town Hall reported. Now, if you're wondering where this story is from, it's from the New York Post, so I'm shocked and surprised that they're actually reporting on this at all in general. And this is not the first time, and it won't be the last this happens. Now, I did a report a couple of months ago to teachers pretty much doing the same thing. When is it going to end? These are the people that are pushing for all this exploration of a sexual kind to children in schools way before their time. I mean, they're grooming children for people like this, for things like this. Now, it's not saying it's not even just gay people. It's straight people, everyone from all walks of life. You'd be surprised to know just how many pedophiles and people like that are in your local area. I mean, if we actually come up with the list that the people are pushing for so that they can be exposed and a map of pretty much where they are, like they have in the States, we'd be shocked and disgusted the amount of people that are close to you, or either physically or as a family member or something like that, that are doing things like this, or that have been charged with doing things like this. Now, we'll keep reading here, but just bear in mind that these guys were activists pushing the LGBTQ agenda. This is why places like things like Gays Against Groomers have popped up, because there is such a massive outcry from the LGBTQ community that they do not want groomers and people like this in their ranks. I mean, who would? And I do not see why large media and government authorities are pushing for this to be acceptable. They're pushing for it in schools with disgusting books that kids shouldn't be allowed to read. They're pushing for it in Disney movies. They're pushing for it in all sorts of media that children have access to try to normalize sexuality of children. Balenciaga issue, it just doesn't end. It's everywhere you look. It's always rich, famous, and powerful people that are pushing this agenda. And then you have people like these two scumbags that they start their own little pedophile ring with their own adopted children. Now, I don't know how we stop it without mass amounts of violence, and hopefully that these two people get treated the way that they deserve to be, and we all know what deserves to happen to them. However, Lawless claimed he had never had physical contact with either child. Lawless also claimed Zachary sent him multiple messages on Snapchat, including one that allegedly read, "I'm going to F my son tonight, stand by," along with the images of himself sexually abusing the 11-year-old, according to the outlet. That's disgusting. The two men were arrested on charges of soliciting an act of prostitution with the 11-year-old boy, according to the indictment. It is unclear whether Lawless, Armando Vicario Sanchez, had any physical interactions with the boy. The Zulocks, who lived in Oxford, an affluent suburb in Atlanta, adopted the children from a Christian special needs adoption agency. The boys were the 3rd and 4th grades, where their adoptive fathers were arrested last summer. They're all special needs kids too. That just really... it's going to be a nice warm place for these two in hell, if hell exists, and I hope it does for people like this. Deputies responded to the reports that a man was downloading child pornography raided home in Loganville, where they found evidence the pair were engaging in sexually abusive acts and video documenting this abuse, police said at the time. During the raid, William was pulled out of his home naked. The government worker has admitted to forcing one of his sons to perform oral sex on him with the intent to satisfy his own sexual desire, according to a sworn affidavit cited by the Daily Wire. His husband admitted sending child sex abuse material to several people, according to the news outlet. The couple have been active on the local LGBTQ community. Prominent LGBTQ publication Out Magazine reportedly asked to feature their photos on its website, according to the Daily Wire. Town Hall said it spent months reviewing the recorded jailhouse calls, court documents, and testimony from a relative who spoke exclusively with the outlet about the extent of the abuse, as well as the faster than expected adoption process that led to the nightmare. William and Zachary, who have pleaded not guilty, face over 9 life sentences in convicted. 9 life sentences. 9 life sentences is not enough. Not that it matters. I mean, what do you do with people like that? What are you legally allowed to do with people like that? Those kids are forever traumatized and messed up. And you look at these photos where these monsters are posing to pretty much sell their propaganda. And look, I don't know how often this happens in families, whether it's a normal heterosexual family or a gay family or anything like that. It happens way too often. And it has always happened and pretty much always will happen. We need to crack down on these people, especially when it gets to the extent where they're starting their own ring of pedophiles. I mean, what they're doing in their own home was bad enough, and then they're going and making other people, letting other people do it as well. I don't know what kind of messed up people. How do they find each other as well? Like, these two blokes obviously found each other on the internet somewhere or whatever, and they were like-minded. And it makes you wonder whether it says there that the adoption process was really faster than expected. So you wonder whether whoever was adopting them out was in on it, or yeah. These it wouldn't be surprised people are in on it with the adoption agency, or whether they're just doing it because they want to they want brownie points for giving a gay couple children. I don't know, adopting kids. These kids are orphans or whatever their circumstances were beforehand. They obviously suffered enough being in the welfare, being in the orphanage system or whatever it is in the US there, especially 2 of them. And there's a new hell waiting for them when they got to their adoptive parents. So there is a politician in the US calling for the firing line to be brought back in for these 2 so they can be shot at the stake, I would say. I think that's a little too quick. I'm sure there's other ways, slower ways that this can be done, and I hope that they find justice in prison. I hope that when they get sentenced and they go to prison for their 9 consecutive lifetime sentences, that they find justice in prison rather quickly. And I hope that it's slow and painful. What do you do? I mean, this is why groups like Gays Against Groomers exist, because they do not want to be tarred with the same brush as these people. And that's what it's going to do. If they get away with crap like this and they're the ones who are out there pushing this agenda, I mean, look at everything there. Love my family. Yeah. Yeah. So their activism, it makes you wonder whether a lot of these people pushing for these drag shows and kids story hour and all crap like that, they're thinking the same thing. And I guarantee you there's a lot of them that are, because I cannot see any reason why a child should be in a drag show. That is adult entertainment. There's nothing wrong with drag shows. They're fun. They're great. The drag queens are hilarious. But children should not be involved in that. I wouldn't take a child to a strip show. It's illegal, in fact. I don't know why I would let a stripper read a storybook to a child in a library or at school or whatever. That is not what they're for. They're adult entertainment. You wouldn't let a porn star read books to children, would you? Knowingly, and that's what they're there for, and that's what they get asked about. They're not just there as a normal person. They're there as like someone to answer all the questions for the kids, and then the kids are prompted to ask them questions. It's disgusting. And the leftist media and the LGBT machine that keeps pushing this crap onto children and force feeding it down our throats and expecting us to tolerate this kind of stuff, it's not going to happen. There will be blood in the streets before this is accepted. And the people who are pushing it, they're going to be the ones losing the blood. And there's going to be untold carnage from this, because people don't mess around when it comes to their kids. If you go near people's kids, you will see the wrath of God come down upon you. I remember that story where that father had his son was kidnapped by their karate instructor, and the karate instructor molested the boy over a couple of days. They end up getting the boy back, thank God, and on his way, I believe it was through an airport or something like that, the father was hiding in the crowd on the payphone, turned around and blew the guy's brains out all over the floor, right in full view of all the police and everyone. And he didn't go to jail for it, thankfully. It makes you wonder what these poor kids here with no parents, and then the people who adopt them do that to them, what kind of lives they're going to have, and whether they're going to commit suicide because of what the terrible things that have happened to them. I mean, the first people that go and pretend to show love to them and care for them do those horrific things to them. And I think doing those things to them can breed and create more of those kind of people, which is an evil on its own. So sorry about the bit of a rough story there, but I think it's pretty important that these things are pointed out when they get pointed out, and that people see them, because it's trending at the moment. It just keeps happening. It keeps happening. I mean, Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, he got rid of child pornography off of there in a few days, and Twitter just allowed it for years. For however long Twitter's been up, they've been allowing it. Why do they allow it? I mean, Facebook, I'm sure there's groups that they use with Facebook or Messenger and WhatsApp and things like that where these people are in there, and that Facebook and all that would know about it, and they just do not do anything about it. So I think it's about time we start cracking down on these things. There's great groups out there like Gays Against Groomers. You can go and follow them on Twitter. Donate to their cause. They are trying to stop stuff like this from happening and stop stuff like this from being viewed as socially acceptable and normal, because we all know they want to add a P onto the LGBTQ. So go and check out Gays Against Groomers there on Twitter. Like their content, follow them, talk to those guys, donate to them if you can, because these people are actually out there trying to help people like this, help kids like this, and stop this from happening. And we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching another episode of Crossing the Line. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Retribution!